Hello, I'm Jeremiah, and in today's video, I'm gonna go through the basics of movie producing, and specifically the big picture things you need to do in order to start producing your first feature film. All right, let's jump in. Best place to start talking about movie producing is to break down what exactly a movie producer does. And be sure to watch through the end of this video where I talk about what I think is the secret that every aspiring producer should know that will guarantee getting your first feature film made. But before I get into that, if you haven't already, please take a moment and subscribe to my channel. And if you're interested in raising money for your first feature film, then be sure to download my free ebook, The Feature Film Fundraising Starter Kit. There's a link to it down below. Now, the Academy Awards defines a producer as someone who played a major role in originating the projects on which they received credit. And this is particularly important because it's the producer who receives the Oscar for Best Picture.
On behalf of my fellow producers, Peter Spears.
In layman's terms, and especially for independent filmmaking, the producer is the person or persons who take the project from start to finish. They're involved in every aspect of getting that film made, from initial idea to distribution. And on indie movies, the producer is usually someone who wears multiple hats. So they will most likely also be a writer or director of the project. On my feature film, Torn, I was the producer and the director, and then the other main producer on the project was the writer. Now, lots of different people were vital to getting that film made, but at the end of the day, it was the two of us who shepherded that film from start to finish. So how do you get started producing a feature film? Well, it begins with finding a story that you want to tell. Now, the story could be an original one, or maybe based on a real-life event, or maybe you're inspired by a book or a magazine article. It doesn't matter where it comes from. But in my opinion, it needs to meet two main criteria. And it has to meet both of these criteria in order for it to be worthy of all the time and effort it takes to make a feature film. Number one, you've got to be passionate about it. Woohoo! Don't pick a story idea because you think it's commercial or you think it will sell. Pick an idea that you personally feel connected to and that you're really passionate about telling in film. And the second criteria is it's got to be a good idea. Now, how do you know if something is a good idea? Well, the best way I've found is to tell people that you trust about your idea and see how they react. If they get excited hearing about it and say things like, "That's a great idea," or "I'd love to see a movie like that," then you know you're onto something. However, if the reactions you get from people are just lukewarm or polite, or if people say things like, "Oh yeah, I think I saw a film about that already," then it's probably not a good idea and you should move on to another one. Once you've found your good idea, your great idea, then make sure you have the film rights to it. Now, if it's your own original idea, then this isn't a problem. But if you're licensing a book or a magazine article or even another script, then you're going to have to contact the author and negotiate the rights. Now, there are two ways to do this. You can option the rights or buy the rights. Now, when you option the rights, you typically pay less money up front, but then you only have the rights for a limited amount of time, usually a year, and then an option to renew for a second year. This puts a timeline on when you can raise the money you need to write the script and make the movie. It's less of a commitment, but it's also riskier. When you buy the rights, you'll pay more money up front, but then you'll own the movie rights forever. The risk you take there, of course, is that the film never gets made and you've spent a bunch of money. However, the opposite can also occur and the movie rights could become a huge windfall. That's what happened to the famous producer Saul Zaentz. Now, Zaentz was well known for his ability to find great film projects, and his 3 Best Picture Oscars attest to that. Now, in 1976, Zaentz bought the movie rights to The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit book series from United Artists, who bought them directly from Tolkien 8 years earlier. At the time, the books were thought to be unproducible as movies. They just didn't have the technology and the visual effects. And the first version of The Lord of the Rings, which was an animated film and was produced by Zaentz in 1978, wasn't a big hit.
Because it is altogether evil It will corrupt and destroy anyone who wears it.
But of course, many decades later, when Peter Jackson made the live-action version, it became a mega hit. Okay, so you've secured the right to your great idea. The next step you need to take is figure out who your potential audience is and how you plan to reach them. So there are two questions you're trying to answer here. Who is going to pay to see your film, and what kind of distribution method are you planning to use to reach them? I think one of the best ways to figure this out at this initial stage of the process is to find one or two comparable movies, or comps, and research who their audience was and how they reached them. For independent filmmakers, it's probably important to be focused on more of a niche audience, because you won't have the marketing budget to reach a mainstream audience down the line. Now, audience and distribution is a big topic, and I'll cover it more in another video. But I'd love to hear in the comments below your thoughts on this. And if you've already done your research and you know what the comps are for your film, then I'd love it if you shared those in the comments as well. The next big picture thing you have to figure out is your budget. And this is the secret that I teased about at the beginning of the video, because raising money is usually one of the hardest parts of making a feature film. Now, the secret to actually getting your feature film made is that when you're thinking about the budget of your film, you ask yourself a simple question. How much money do I think I can raise? And be honest with yourself. This is a different number for everyone. Maybe for you it's $5,000 or $20,000, or maybe you're confident you can raise $100,000 or $200,000. Now, I did make a couple of videos on how to raise $100,000 for your first feature film, so be sure to check those out when you get a chance. Whatever your number is, then that should be the budget for your movie. Now, of course, this means it has to be in line with the story you're trying to tell. A $20,000 budget is not going to leave much room for a huge cast or lots of stunt work or exotic locations, but don't let that stop you. With limitations comes creativity, and that can lead to some really terrific filmmaking. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I really appreciate you. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. And when you do, please write in the comments, I subscribed. And if you want more tools and techniques for film funding, then be sure to download my free ebook, The Feature Film Fundraising Starter Kit. It's a book I wrote to help filmmakers just like you raise the money they need to make their first feature film. There's a link to it down below. Cheers, and I'll see you next week.